welcome to Career Tools. This week, how to ask for more resources. Question this cast answers are, how do I ask for more resources on my project? What format should I use for my presentation when I'm asking for more resources? And what should I do if my request for more resources is turned down?
Are you struggling with job interviews? We've got the key to unlock your potential. Our comprehensive guide, the interview series, takes you from preparation to follow-up, ensuring no detail is overlooked. Get expert advice on creating effective resumes and cover letters, making a strong first impression, and handling salary discussions like a pro. With step-by-step guidance, you'll be equipped to tackle any interview question. Our members have turned their interviews into job offers, and you can too. Transform your interview experience and open doors to new career opportunities. Start your journey to interviewing excellence with us today by going online to manager-tools.com and finding our products menu and looking there for the interview series. Get the interview series today.
The success of projects and initiatives often hinges on effective management of resources. All you have to complete a project is time and people and computers or trucks or whatever it is that's resources in your organization. And as a project manager, even if you're not a project manager in name, even if you're just the manager, it's managing those resources to get to the end outcome. The better you manage those resources, the more likely you are to get to the outcome that you wanted. And in every company, for as long as I've been at work, everybody has been asked to do more with less. But there are times at which you get to a point where you can't do any more with what you've got. Yeah, you're working everything to its maximum. You've thought of every way of shortcutting. You've thought of every clever trick to make sure that, you're just doing what you need to focus on. Everybody's working and focused on their time and their time management, and there's just still not enough people or not enough resources in compute power, or there's not enough trucks, and you have to go and ask for more. And in this guidance, we're going to tell you how to do that.
All right. So today we're going to cover to do it informally first, then document the business case, followed by compromise gracefully, and lastly, have patience and build relationships.
The first part is really important because if you get to this part and you get refused, you've just saved yourself a whole bunch of work, because the rest of this cast, there is a lot of work to be done. And if you do this easy part first and you get refused, you don't have to do any of the rest of it, which is, it's always good to avoid work if you can. So asking informally first saves you doing all of the work in the next step if there's no way you're going to get your request approved. And, sometimes that comes because your boss knows something is coming. Your boss knows there's going to be a crackdown on costs, or there's going to be a crackdown on contractor overtime, or there's going to be nobody's going to be allowed to fly, and it's coming. It's going to be announced next week, or it's going to be announced in 2 weeks' time. And your boss knows that already, and you don't at your level. And so even though you have a perfectly justified case, you know that you can't get it done without those resources, your boss is going to say, no, you can't have it. I'm sorry. It just can't be done. And we're going to have to move the deadline, or we're going to have to rescope the project, or we're going to have to go back to the client and say, we're going to have to do something different. The other really good thing about having this conversation informally with your boss is that you can include the critical factors that matter to your boss and the other decision makers when you come to do the formal part of writing the business case. So later on, we're going to make you do this hard work of actually writing the business case. And we're going to give you a hint now. Go and ask your boss, or that's what we're going to do now, this informal conversation. We're going to find out all of the things that you should put in there to make it successful. So not only are you going to avoid the work if you don't have to do it. But if you have to do it, you're going to get it right because you're going to know what to put in it. It's like genius. So don't skip this step because this increases your chances like by 50% easily.
Yeah, and can decrease some of the workload later on.
Exactly.
It's a no-brainer.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, you got to save that time for later for something else. And one-on-ones or professional updates are the ideal times to ask informally. But if your boss doesn't have weekly meetings with you, then you will need to set up a meeting specifically to have this conversation. So when we say ask informally, what we mean is to ask for your boss's advice and wait to ask for the resources. This turns a question with a yes or no answer into a conversation. And that conversation gives you a lot of information that you will need to be successful.
Because if I say to you, Amanda, can I have an ice cream? The answer is yes or no, right? But if I say, Amanda, do you think ice cream is really good for lunch? The answer isn't yes or no. You can say, well, on Fridays, maybe as a celebration, and it's Friday today. So now I can say, well, it's Friday today, so we should have lunch. We should have ice cream for lunch, right? Being able to turn the yes, no into something where they have to give you more of an answer, that gives you that hook that you can then change into something that's persuasive. So we've got some more, not everybody's asking for ice cream on Fridays, I realize. So we have some more work-related questions.
Yeah, but now I want ice cream. So thanks for
It's Friday,
that.
You're allowed.
It is Friday. All right. So we have some examples for you. One example could be, I've analyzed our current project timeline and workload, and I don't think we can meet it without another team member. I realize that this would be additional resources, but it's the only way I can see to meet our project deadlines more efficiently and maintain the quality of our work. Can you help me see if there's another solution?
The other nice thing about this one is it puts the boss in the position of being the expert and the smart person. Everybody likes to feel like they're the smart person in the room, and asking for their help and making them feel like, oh, this person thinks I have the answers, puts them in a good place. That it's a psychological, I don't want to say that you're pandering to them. You're not doing it to make them feel good, but it is a nice way to phrase the question because you're asking them as the expert, and that puts them in a good place to answer the question.
Yeah, and it doesn't put them in a tough spot to say yes or no immediately. It's like, it just opens them up to be like, oh yeah, I have some more insight for you, because your boss will. Mm-hmm. Another example would be, to keep up with the latest trends and techniques in our field, I think it would be beneficial for our team to attend, insert your specific training or workshop. This training could enhance our skills and directly contribute to improved project performance. Do you think we'd have the budget for that, or is there another way to go about it?
Yeah. And again, it's not a yes, no. It's like, no, we don't have the budget for that. But it still leaves open, there's some other ways to go about it. Yes, no. That you could shadow someone, or I've seen a really good online training, or there's a guy in another department who would do a lunch and learn with you. It's not what you want because you want to go on the training, especially Amanda's going to Tampa next week as it's January by the time you hear this, but Amanda was in Tampa in December because that's where you put conferences in December. And everybody wants to go there in December. But if you can't get the training there, then maybe a lunch and learn with somebody else is the best alternative. And even though you're asking your boss for some solutions, and he might not solve it the way you want it to be solved, you do still need to go to this meeting with the data to back up your question. So it's both to be able to demonstrate what the problem is and to support the solution that you want. For example, if we go back to the first example and we were talking about project timeline and workload and we needing extra people, you wouldn't go into that meeting, even though the potential is the boss says, no, you can't have extra people, you need to do something else. You still need to have your project timeline there and the deadlines and how many hours everybody is working and so on. Because if your boss says you can't have any more resources, then you have to be looking at the timeline and whether or not you can move that out or changing the scope. And so you need all that data to have that discussion. So you can't go in there without any backup. You need that with you.
Yeah. And when you look at the data, it's crucial to focus on the business needs rather than your personal desires. Remember, your manager is responsible for using the company's resources wisely, primarily to increase revenue or reduce costs. To improve your chances of approval, you should clearly demonstrate how your request will contribute to one of these objectives. Asking for something that benefits you personally is not off limits as long as it helps the business. So if you want to go to Tampa for a conference,
you can still ask for that.
You can still ask. Pick a good spot. I'm excited. Now, for instance, if getting a faster computer allows you to complete your work more efficiently, potentially speeding up a project's completion, then it's a valid request. The key is to show that the investment in resources, like a new computer, aligns with the company's interest and offers clear benefits compared to other potential uses for the same funds.
And one note, if you are asking for people or person hours for people to work on your project, just remember that staff cost more than salary. Even if you've got contractors, you say, I need 8 hours of this person and they charge $165 an hour. If you have staff and you have internal rates for those staff, or you want to hire someone and you know what the salary range is for that person, staff always cost more than their salaries. So you need to account for taxes and benefits and training and development and office space and equipment and insurance and recruitment and a whole lot more. So generally, the staff are thought of to cost about 1.5 times their salary at a very rough, if you want somewhere to start from. It varies by industry, it varies by the equipment you need, it varies by all sorts of things, it varies by level in the organization. But you need to have that in the back of your mind. It's not like buying a computer. Staff cost more than just putting them in the room. And even contractors cost more than their hourly rate because you have recruitment fees and legal and contract costs and insurance and management and oversight because you have to oversee their work because they don't work for the company. And so you have to make sure that it's right before you check it into your code base. And there's additional risks in terms of confidentiality and potentially having to rework their work because it wasn't right in the first place because they didn't have the background knowledge that your employees do. So having more people on a team can seem like the answer, but it actually comes with a lot more cost than it seems. It's kind of like if you think about working on any team, you think about working in your yard, sometimes it's not as easy to have all your kids work with you. They slow you down. It's the same in projects at work. Sometimes more people slow you down.
Yeah.
Because of all of the other things they come with.
So everything costs more than what you can anticipate. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you might not need all of this in your informal request, but we just want to remind you so that you have that in the back of your mind and you don't look naive when somebody says, you realize staff costs more than this, right?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And to help you all, the questions your boss asks tells you what concerns that they have. For example, and I'm going to list off some, first what you would say, and then what your boss's response could be. So you say, I've been researching ways to improve our workflow, and I found that this tool could significantly enhance our productivity. It has features that could save us time and reduce errors. Do you think this is a good idea, or is there a better way to get the same result?
And I say, as the boss, is it really going to save us money when it's $30 a person a month?
You now know the concern is about the financial return on the investment.
Or how long would it take to train everybody?
And now you know the concern is about the learning curve and the potential drop in productivity during that time.
How do we know this company is sticking around? You just found them on the internet.
You now know the concern is about the supplier's longevity and credibility. And once you know what his concerns are, you can address them. Knowing the concerns is a good thing. In fact, this is Sales 101. This is also a benefit of asking for advice first. If you're asking for permission now, you have to have all the answers now. So if you want that answer right away, you have to have that data to support it right then. And if you started by asking for advice, you can take the idea away and refine it. You can take all those concerns and now know what data you must have to support it. So getting past this point may take more than one conversation. Once you have, your boss might give you the go-ahead from there. Alternatively, you may have to present a more formal request to your boss or to someone else in the business. In that case, it's time to document the business case.
Which is the work part of this. That work we were trying to avoid, this is the work part. So you usually need some kind of informal go-ahead with your boss before this. People don't generally go around making business cases and formally presenting them without some informal conversations having happened. And we have an entire podcast about this. It's called How to Give a Decision Briefing. And it has a model in it that will take you through all of what you need in the business case and how to present it and what to do beforehand and what to do afterwards in all of the usual detail. But just to give you an idea, there's a model in it and it's called SOCCR, because you always have to give models names that have real names, right? And it's SOCRR because we couldn't think of an E, which is you brief what the situation is. So I'm on a project. I've looked at the workflow. I've looked at what we need to get done and the number of people we have, and we can't meet the deadline. What the options are: we can move the deadline, we can get more people, we can miss the deadline, we can change the scope. Comparison. So here's some options. Here's the comparison between what would happen if we did these different options. Here's my recommendation. So here's what I think we should do. And then request. Please, can I go ahead with this recommendation? So it's nice and structured. It helps people follow your logic. It makes sure that you include all of the things that people ask about. If the person you're presenting to is a high D, you might not present all of your slides. You might only do the first one, the comparison, and the request. But if you're presenting to high Cs, you'll have to do all of them. But it makes sure that you have all of the details that you need, no matter who you're presenting to.
Yeah, be able to answer those questions. And you'll notice that the brief questions we asked informally also start with the situation and an option. When you formally brief, you'll have multiple options. There are always at least two, because one is to stick with the status quo. You might not need the entire process for a small issue, but it might still be worth going through it just for practice and to prepare for the informal questions from your boss. It'll certainly make sure you've thought of everything you might be asked.
And that's another trick. I was just thinking about that. It's another trick to look smart in meetings. If everyone's talking about a problem that's going on, one of the questions you can ask is, well, what would happen if we did nothing? There's a silent moment where everybody thinks about it, because doing nothing is always an option.
Oh, yeah.
Or how many people is this affecting? And then somebody says, well, it's 2 out of 2,000. Well, what happens if we do nothing? 2 people out of 2,000? Maybe it doesn't matter. So put that on your list of smart questions to ask in meetings.
I like that.
To those of you down under, we will be in Melbourne, Australia, the week of April 22nd for our public conferences, which means this is the opportune time to coordinate your on-site training needs with us, since most of the overseas travel costs are going to get absorbed by the public event. In other words, you'll save money. So Contact Maggie, her email address, maggie at manager-tools.com, to discuss how we can deliver an effective manager, effective communicator, or effective hiring manager to your team. If you got a group of 15 or more, it's far more cost effective for us to come directly to you. So, take advantage of our once-a-year visit to your part of the globe.
Our next section is compromise gracefully. So if you are asked to compromise, you're either told no or you're given a solution that wasn't your choice, or you're giving a halfway solution that's halfway to what you wanted and halfway to what someone else wanted. Do so gracefully. There are many ways to solve a problem, and the suggested solution might not be the way you thought about it. It might not be the one you wanted, but it probably will solve the problem and meet your objectives. And remember that your boss is generally acting in the best interest of the organization. And there's two more podcasts we want to recommend here. Professional Subordination, which I remember as the Murdering the Unchosen Alternative podcast, because that's the model in there, because that one's so much easier to remember, which is about this compromise gracefully aspect of when your idea isn't chosen, to how to move on from that or how to act after that point as a subordinate, and how to deal with your boss in meetings after that. And the other one is Assume Positive Intent, which is a really good reminder that most of the time, most of the people are doing their best. And very rarely are people coming into work, even your boss, and thinking, how can I ruin somebody's day? And how can I make their life really difficult by not choosing the solution that they want? So those two casts are really helpful if you've got to this point, you've done this formal briefing, and your idea isn't the one that's chosen, or nobody sees it as a problem, or your solution isn't seen as the right solution.
Yeah. I really do love the Assume Positive Intent podcast. I emphasize that a lot in our conferences because we need that reminder.
Yes.
Everyone needs it. All right. Now, what if your request is refused altogether? Then you're going to accept the result gracefully. The better you accept the rejection, the more likely it is that your boss and others in the organization will be receptive when you ask again in the future. Please do not fear that you are going to be seen as a pushover, because you will not. A professional will see you as understanding the greater business objective. So you are going to be living to try another day. Again, it's about that insight that you might not have as to what's coming down the pipeline, that bigger organizational picture. And if you do it, take the rejection gracefully, they're going to remember that in the future.
Yeah. And what's more, situations like this, where you're asked to compromise or you're rejected altogether, are opportunities to learn more about the politics of your workplace and the best time for requests like these and the best approach for specific individuals. So you can come out of it and think of it as a learning experience and think, what did I learn from this? And what will I do differently next time?
And lastly, have patience and build relationships. Having presented your business case, you've put one brick into the wall of a relationship. Whether you presented to your boss or people you have never met in the organization, it's one or more connection between you. The more you build on that brick, the more likely you are to be successful in the future. What? Wendy, we came back to relationships?
No, I know. You thought we were going to get through an entire podcast without mentioning it. It's amazing.
Not today. And I like it.
So nothing about making requests like these is a one-shot going, meaning there'll always be a chance to pitch again, whether in the same format, a different format, or a different solution. And the more you've built and maintained relationships, the more likely it is you'll have supporters who will listen and support you in making your arguments. Even finding someone to listen and point out the flaws in your argument in an organizational setting is a win. So don't think, oh, that's the only thing I've got. I've got one person who'll tell me how wrong I am. That's a good thing. And if you've got that, then you're already winning. So building relationships and having people who will support you is an important part of this whole big,
Say process.
this big career process of getting what you want done.
And because it's not easy to ask for more resources and more people that you can have on your side in the future. And to your point, whether that's to say, yes, let's do this, or, hey, you're wrong, you're not looking at it the wrong way. Imagine having that in your corner before you present anything. That would be so helpful. So build those relationships.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Wendy.
We'll be back next week with another topic. Bye, everyone.